It's week 12 of the NFL and the Matchbook podcast is here. I'm your host, Daniel, joined by Drew, Judah, and Sam, the terrific trio once again. Drew, people will be saying the long shot era of Drew Dinsick has ended, but in heartbreaking circumstances, Drew. You backed the Bears. It was the right side in terms of the money line for sure, and obviously the plus 8.5 got home, which was your main bet. But talk to us a little bit about your emotions, because I think people like listening to the ups and downs of betting, particularly when it ends in a loser.
We had a good run.
We did.
Can't win them all. Up 12 with 4 minutes to go. Win probability is like in the 90 plus range, even if you are a dog. And you know, I didn't think the Bears made any especially egregious decisions with the way they handled the end of game. But it was pretty obvious that the defense just kind of ran out of gas. And it's a bummer because the defense had been playing well lately, but apparently in the Tyson Bagent era, they were doing a lot of heavy lifting and that unit was very fatigued. That was kind of my takeaway there. But crisp offense by the Lions to get that win home. And I guess narrowly avoided disaster, honestly. If the Lions recover that touchdown instead of a safety at the end of the game, then we're having a very different discussion right now.
Yeah. Judah, it's Thanksgiving week. You're over in Ireland this year, or have you managed to get home for Thanksgiving, or what's the plan?
I am back home for Thanksgiving in New York. It's nice to see the sun on Thanksgiving Day.
Thanks, Judah. As someone who's looking out at the miserable dark skies here in Dublin, it's already dark in Dublin, and it's probably already dark, Sam, where you are. So tell the listeners a little bit about you're jetting on holiday. We were saying off air, it's not just Drew that gets to jet away into continental Europe to explore the world during NFL season. But go on.
Yeah, I mean, NFL and Balkans, what could be a better combo than that? I'm in Belgrade at the moment, and it's incredibly cold and it's incredibly wet. So I'm more than happy to be in here this afternoon chatting football with you guys.
Yeah, and look, we're really looking forward to Thanksgiving. It's always a tough podcast every year how we go about covering it on the Matchbook NFL podcast, because we are obviously based here in the UK and Ireland. We are going to cover all three of Thursday's Thanksgiving games. We're going to lead the Friday one just because of how big the handicap is. And then we'll take a look at the Bills of the Eagles, because I'm really looking forward to that because, again, we say this every week, but that is our prime time in the UK and Ireland. We get to see two of these top teams fighting it out before we get to go to bed. So that's much appreciated from the NFL on behalf of the UK and Ireland. And before we get into those four games, if you are watching on the YouTube stream, do hit that like button and subscribe completely for free. It's the best way of getting our content, not just for NFL, but for horse racing and football as well. And if you are listening on the podcast, we'd much appreciate a 5-star review. So get involved with the live chat if you're watching. Let's get into it. We'll start with the Packers at the Lions and take a look at the betting that we have on the Matchbook Betting Exchange just over 24 hours before this game kicks off. So really looking forward to normal time here on a Thursday watching this game. Packers 4.4 on the money line. The Lions 127. The point spread sees the Packers get a 7.5 head start, and the total for this one is currently set at 47.5. So Drew, take it away. Look, we spoke a little bit already about the Bears and the Lions. So where are you at with the Lions after that performance? Because obviously it was a massive shock considering they're meant to cover 8.5.
Yeah, I feel like very in tune with these teams because my two biggest needs were against the Lions and on the Packers last week. And now they play each other. And the injuries that the Packers sustained in that game against the Chargers, I think, are pretty aggressive. If this were a normal week and they had kind of the normal amount of time to get these guys right, maybe there's a better chance that guys like Devondre Campbell and Devontae Wicks, are available. But I think on the short week, certainly Aaron Jones is not going to go. And it's unlikely that Devondre Campbell's going to be able to play. I don't have any status on Jair Alexander. I thought he was possibly going to go last week and then ultimately was scratched. So no guarantee that he's good to suit up here. These are some really important players, I think, ultimately in the scheme of things for both the offense and the defense. It's kind of now Jordan Love and offensive line and not a lot else with this Packers team, which is a tough hang when you head into the Detroit Lions, who are well schemed. Who have a pretty dynamic rush attack and who can, I think, get it done in multiple ways on offense against your defense. We kind of laid it out, I think, pretty correctly that the Chargers weren't really schemed well to take advantage of the schematic deficiencies of the Packers defense. They're not, they didn't have a physical rushing attack that they could really utilize to help kind of pad their offense. Well, the Lions very clearly do. One of the reasons I was against the Lions last week is because the Bears rush defense was performing at like this all universe level. And yet the Lions still managed to get 0.22 EPA per play on the ground against a very, very good Bears defense. And so I look at this matchup and I think, man, if, assuming that Goff does not throw them out of the game early, the running attack for the Lions here should absolutely feast. I would expect that both Montgomery and Gibbs kind of have their way early here. And I would expect that that puts the Packers in sort of a very familiar spot where they are in comeback mode. And I would say, I don't have any explanation for this, but the first half, second half splits for Jordan Love this season are like one of the more bizarre kind of anomalies that you can find across kind of player level performance. He is second worst in EPA per play in the first half of games so far this season, second best in the second half of games. It is almost like whatever they are doing in terms of structure and scripting is he's just not getting it, or he's not facilitating what Matt LaFleur wants to do. And then in the second half of the games when they're, kind of adjusting on the fly and it's maybe a little bit more kind of backyard ball, he's balling out. So I'm going to kind of lean into that a bit here and play the Lions as the first half -4, and the expectation that their offense is pretty balanced, is pretty efficient early on, and they can generate a lead against this Packers team, not unlike what we saw when they played on Thursday Night Football, a handful of weeks ago. Weird also that this is I believe that was Thursday Night Football. This is got to be one of the only times that both divisional matchups between teams happened on a Thursday in the same season. But you got another short week for Packers Lions here, and I think ultimately this is a decent opportunity for the Lions to put some early pressure on the Packers. And if you think I'm not going to take my money from Lions -4 first half right back to the window and play Packers second half, you're crazy, because this Lions defense is hot frauds. They can't generate pressure. They can't really defend the pass very well. Outside of Brian Branch, I'm not sure I love really anyone in this, in the back seven for this, everyone in the back seven for this squad I have questions about. So it's going to be pretty tough for me to kind of avoid getting involved with the Packers here at some point, at some price. But I think out of the gate, especially with the Lions being able to, kind of dictate terms, I would expect that they can generate a lead here. So Lions -4 in the first half for me, and I like Lions in teasers as well at this price point.
Yeah, Judah, Drew's closing last minute or two has kind of dampened my appetite here that there may be disagreements on this podcast in the first game here, because Judah, you are loving the Packers, but is there anything that Drew said that you want to take up on, or are you sort of in agreement with that first half? And
I think I'm in agreement.
Argue it.
Yes, I think I'm with Drew. This is a tricky one for me because, right, I think point spreads reflect two things, one of which is like the fundamental value of teams, right? We think of like how much better they are, points on a neutral field, but they also reflect real points in a real game. And that means something different to certain teams, right? By this, I mean I don't think there are, accounting for home field advantage, however you want to go through, 7, let's just say 6 points of a difference. I don't think that's right. I think the Packers have actually underperformed their kind of fundamental play. I think they've been almost exactly average in both areas of the game. And the Lions have been terrific on offense, but as Drew said, I think this defense is a little bit fraudulent and has been exposed by effectively all non-backup quarterbacks, especially when they can generate pressure, which I don't think they'll be able to do. So I'm kind of conflicted in that way, which is that I don't think that 6 points, however that marker we want to put it at, separates these two teams. I think it's a lot smaller than that. But on the other hand, when I think about how this game can be played out, especially I know I'm agreeing with Drew here again, with the Lions getting their run game going, I can really see them spreading out leads. And with such a good offense, if you're putting up 35 points or whatever that might be, then the 7.5 is a little less appealing. But I'll still kind of make my case for Green Bay here, because I think the median outcome is still a pretty close game. And I think it's for a lot of the reasons that Drew mentioned, especially recently. This is a Detroit team which has been attacked deep a lot. They're facing the second highest EDAT over the last bunch of weeks, EDAT being depth of target. They're also giving up a lot of explosive plays as a result of that. And that's kind of the area in which Jordan Love has been most underperforming. If you look at his kind of like accuracy rates or his like deep grade as charted by PFF, it'll be a lot better than the actual results there. And that kind of filters exactly to the weakness of the Lions. I'm a little bit concerned because the Packers are dealing with some injuries at the wide receiver unit, but it is still a matchup advantage. I still think Christian Watson is a plus deep threat. He hasn't really put that performance on the field yet, but that isn't to say that won't happen. And at the end of the day, the Packers, the best feature of their defense is the ability to generate a pass rush. They're top 10 in quick pressure rate. If they can kind of get to Goff a little bit, we obviously know Goff has some pretty drastic splits under pressure versus not. But I think this is ultimately just going to be a lean for me here because I do see a very viable game script in which the Lions jump out to a lead. They keep their foot on the gas, continue to kind of run at will, keep the Packers off the field. But I do think that 7.5 points is far too many for where these two teams are at currently.
Okay, so these could be.
Can I get Judah to weigh in on an opinion on the first half, second half love stuff? Because this, it's a small sample. All football is. I am not an idiot, but minus 0.141 in the first half EPA per play, plus 259 in the second half that's as big as I've ever seen. And is it schematic? Is it LaFleur? Like what is ultimately driving why he would be so miserable and in scripted portion of a game and then so outstanding in the, in the later stages?
It's interesting because like, as you were saying that, I was thinking like, oh, I after this is done, I need to like go dig deeper into this. I didn't notice that. My like intuition there is that it's probably going to be a like deep variance thing where like for whatever reason none of the deep balls are hitting in the first quarter and they are hit in the first half and they are hitting in the second half. That's my guess. I could be totally wrong here, but yeah, it's startling and at least worth looking into, even if it is a reflection of some statistical noise.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, because he's only better than Kenny Pickett in the first half and he's only worse than Josh Allen in the second half, which is crazy to me.
When you put it like that into quarterback statures, that's even more outrageous, to be honest. And Sam, look, I know you're no bet here, but like Jordan Love's your guy. You bigged him up in week 1, so talk to us a bit about him and that first half, second half split, which is crazy. Maybe it's just a small sample, but we're a good bit through the season now, so maybe it isn't.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was hoping people would have forgotten that I was bigging him up before the season, but you've outed me.
I do this every couple of weeks. Sorry.
Yeah. Look, I don't really know what it is, and I wasn't aware of that either. That is pretty crazy. So it'd be interesting. Let's get Judah in the lab. Let's see what he comes up with, digging through the numbers and hear back next week. But yeah, for me, this is a no bet because look, I think the Lions will win, but at 1.27, the money line just doesn't appeal to me. And we spoke last week about kind of being a bit more responsible with our gambling sometimes. And I would be betting on this purely for the sake of betting on this, which ultimately, it's not really what it's about. So I'm kind of avoiding it. I think 7.5, really good line. I could see it kind of going either way here. The injuries do concern me, but the Lions I just think are quite a perplexing team. And the offense is so good, it can be so dominant, but the defense does give anybody a chance. So for me, I don't think the Packers are as bad as the record suggests. I think that you compare other teams on the same record, like the Falcons, the Bucks, and I think they can offer something quite a lot better than that. But for me, I just don't really want to bet on this at 1.27 on the money line, and nothing else really takes my fancy. So it's just going to be keeping the money in my pocket for this week.
Okay, yeah. So the bets to run them back, Drew, going to take Lions -4 and the first half handicap, and due to the leaning with the Packers at +7.5, a little bit concerned with injuries and stuff. So fascinating game. Probably none the wiser after that. Maybe leaning towards that first half play on the podcast. We will go to game 2 in prime time in the UK and Ireland. That is Commanders at the Cowboys. We'll take a look at the betting. They're currently having the match with Betting Exchange. Definitely one of the one-sided games we covered. But Commanders 6.4 on the money line. The Cowboys available at 1.16. The handicap sees the Commanders get a 12-point head start, and the total for this game currently stands at 48.5. So yeah, Gio, to set up this game, you're kind of sort of looking for a live spot. So if someone at home is watching this game, what are they sort of looking for in that first quarter to potentially play on the match with Betting Exchange?
Yeah, I'll first say, like, I'm looking at these lines and I'm starting to get my Washington lean a little bit as I see the number.
Yeah. Well, look, Sam's the Packers guy. You're our Commanders guy. So and Drew has the Jags. So that's the way it is.
So I think kind of this actually gets back to what I was saying before about, I don't think 12 points separates these two teams, but I would be scared about how this game plays out. And that's kind of my live play here, which is Sam Howell can have success against any defense in the league, or you've seen him like light up the Eagles a couple of times. And if he is at his best, throwing the ball at will, not taking sacks, that sort of thing. Like the Commanders can hang with anyone, and I think they are as live as any team is. That's a 12-point underdog to actually win the game. But I don't think it would be like crazy shocking for Sam Howell to outplay Dak Prescott in a 1-game sample. It's very different than Tommy DeVito outplaying Dak Prescott in a 1-game sample, or Bryce Young, whatever that might be. But I really want to be looking for is this kind of like Dallas defensive line against the Washington offensive line, because Dallas can completely overwhelm you, especially if they're finding themselves in a positive game script. But if Washington comes out of the bat firing and can kind of establish some run game to alleviate a little bit of the pressure, I'm thinking something like if Washington's up, 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, or something that's not Dallas is up 10-0, they can start to pressure Howell. Howell takes a bunch of sacks. This game gets out of control. That's where I think I'm going to want to bet Washington live, because the live line is still going to be a reflection of that initial price, right? It's going to reflect whatever it is, 11, 12 point spread, wherever this might close. And if Washington finds themselves in a favorable game script, which I don't think is out of the question, I'm definitely going to want to back Washington. Conversely, like this game can get completely out of hand like we saw last week if the Cowboys can kind of jump out to a lead. But I will say, I think what's really guiding a lot of this bet is I want to completely fade whatever happened with Washington last week. Like, none of this is news. We know Sam Howell's turnover prone. Right? We know he's going to take sacks. Like, variance happens. To like say that I think we learned anything new would be wrong. This team is still capable of putting together solid performances. That I guess I lean Washington, but really it's something I'd rather just bet live, depending on how the kind of first quarter goes.
Okay, yeah, interesting thoughts, Judah. Sam, take it away on potentially backing the Cowboys here to cover that. Well, it was 11.5. It's now pushed out to 12.0.
Yeah, for me, I'm taking the 11.5. Well, I'll take the 12 as well. I'll take anything you've got on the Cowboys, to be honest with you. I think there's no team that are better in the NFL when it comes to extending their lead. Once they have the lead, than the Cowboys, can't even speak, than the Cowboys, and they will get the lead at some point against the Commanders. I feel certain of that. They're a great front running team. Commanders defense, not particularly good, and it wasn't great at the start of the season. It's just got worse, obviously, with the players leaving in trades. Secondary is not particularly good either. We saw them turn over the ball. Was it 5 or 6? I think 6 times last week. And I think Judah is right. There's obviously that variance that comes with Sam Howell. I think we've seen that, and I think it's partly why I think he's quite entertaining to watch, as long as he's not your quarterback. But ultimately, that Giants team are terrible. And to lose to them, let alone by a double-digit margin, is frankly unforgivable, really. And I just think this Cowboys team, 30.2 points per game, they're almost overtaking the Dolphins in that sense, which is quite impressive given that ridiculous Dolphins result at the start of the season against the Broncos. I think this is going to be just another heavy win for the Cowboys, and yeah, I'm just going to keep backing them against weaker teams, because I think when they can get on top, they are very good at just kind of taking control and going through the gears and getting the win quite easily.
Okay, Cowboys minus 12.0 for Sam. Drew, I guess if you are expecting the Cowboys to perform to their usual standards when they play in those blowout wins, but also the Commanders to stick with them, perhaps something like the over could be the play here.
Yeah, I'm kind of reading the market here for this. My thoughts were similar to Judah's, in that 11 yesterday, as I was looking at this, was like, what the heck? Like, no way. And then you wake up this morning and it's 12. It's like, oh, so somebody literally was like, oh yeah, 11 is not enough. And Sam's like, 11 is not enough. But that to me is like, oh, okay, well, I need to maybe rethink this a little bit. And the points Sam made are fair. Like, the Cowboys are just front running bullies. Like, they're not going to take their foot off the gas. Like, I think they want to put on a show for Thanksgiving. They all seem to intend to do that. Every time they have the clear advantage in a game against an opponent. I don't put the Commanders in the same class as a lot of the teams that they have just absolutely made fools of this year. I think they're a step above, and yes, that includes the Giants, who they just lost to. That game was absolute bonkers. The Commanders doubled the Giants in terms of first downs. They got 100 more yards of offense. That 5.2 yards per play is perfectly fine. They sacked Tommy DeVito 9 times. and they lost by 12. It's like is a 1 in a million, and it had a lot to do with turnovers. Obviously, 6-0 turnover margin is going to lose you a lot of games. The fact that 3 of those were fumbles that weren't Sam Howell's fault, I think, is probably noteworthy. That's not, game to game type of expectation that you're going to lose 3 fumbles. The 3 interceptions by Howell were pretty poor, but he is a high variance guy. I would currently put Howell pretty clearly in the top half of quarterbacks. I think he is kind of, I don't see a ton of margin between him and the likes of Baker Mayfield or Russell Wilson, Gardner Minshew, Jordan Love. Like he's right in that mix with those guys in the middle class of quarterbacks in today's NFL. And, if he's able to take advantage with his fast wide receivers of some of the issues with the Cowboys schematically on defense in the secondary, then yeah, the Commanders are going to score and they're going to make this a competitive game. And kind of going with the idea that my initial read on this one was too many points for the dog. And then the market pushed it even more. I think that I'm perfectly fine pivoting to an over here, expecting that you're going to get, 14 to 17 points at a minimum out of the Commanders here, and the Cowboys could get to 40 themselves. So that all of a sudden makes this, potentially a total that's, a hair too low. And, expecting the Cowboys to kind of keep their foot on the gas with the lead, that helps an over. Expecting the Commanders to surprise to the good helps an over. So, I think realistically, this is, probably the most entertaining game on the card. And, we shouldn't be shocked about the Commanders potentially pulling off an upset. I'll be honest with you. I thought about just like maybe on the variance part of this, like maybe just take the money line and take, parlay a little money line over because the Cowboys are going to get theirs in this game. It's just a matter of how many the Commanders get, I think, whether they cover, whether they win. So, Micah Parsons might have 6 sacks. Sam Howell might throw 3 picks. That's entirely possible. But at the same time, if the Commanders have a clean game, they're going to be live. So I think that's the right way to play this. And I guess I'll just say the Giants beating the last thought on the Giants beating the Commanders last week. That's 2 wins for the Giants over the Commanders. This has like healthy whiffs of the Texans from last year, like tying and beating the Colts. Like, congratulations, Giants fans. You got 2 wins against the Commanders. But like when the dust settles and you're picking 3rd or 4th and you don't have your Caleb Williams or Drake May because you beat the Commanders twice, like I hope it was worth it, like celebrating the Tommy DeVito 3 touchdown win over the Commies. So it's a weird scene, and it makes the Giants Patriots game especially interesting this week, I guess, now that the 1 seed is kind of in the balance for that contest. So or at least a top 2 pick is in the balance, I guess, because it seems certain like the Panthers are pointing towards the bottom of the pile here. But ultimately this game should be fun and competitive. I'm hopeful it's fun and competitive, and I think over 48.5 is a play. And if you want to get real weird, parlay it with the Commanders to win for a small stake is fun as well.
Yeah, that money line price 6.4 on Matchbook currently. So
that's a big number,
isn't it? Yeah, just when you're saying it with that variance, you can still get hammered. Like, but yeah, over 48.5, the safe play for Drew, 194. Sam is going for like
Commanders could have beat the Eagles twice this year, guys. Is there that much difference between the Eagles and the Cowboys? Not really.
And was your best long shot that week as well. One of the weeks they lost to. So Sam is going for the Cowboys blowout win minus 12.0, 194. I will say, I know a few Giants fans. It's a tough time to be a Giants fan, even when they're winning, as Drew said, against the Commanders. They're losing there potentially next year. So we will go to Thanksgiving, the final game, 49ers at Seahawks. This is Thursday night football. I know it's Thursday night football, but it is a Thursday night football production, guys. I'm sure, just seeing the nodding heads there. Massive game in the NFC West. It's the Niners 131 favorites here. The Seahawks 385. The point spread sees Seahawks getting a 7-point head start at even money 2.0 on the Matchbook betting exchange, and the total here is 44. So yeah, Sam, set up this game for us in terms of what side you like. It's a big game in terms of there's only one game between these sides at the top of the NFC West.
Yeah, I mean there's one game between them, but come on, let's be honest. There's a world of difference, I think, in the quality between those 2 teams. And I think you're going to see that in the next couple of weeks. I think the Seahawks have got the Niners twice, the Cowboys and the Eagles. And I think that should kind of tell us a lot about where they are. And I would expect to kind of bring them down to their level slightly. So yeah, for me, I think the 49ers are the best team in the league right now. I think they were, but bar that little wobble for 3 weeks, I think the coaching's great. They started really a lot hotter than I thought they would this season. Just very good on offense, very good on defense. Whereas the Seahawks, I kind of feel are maybe and slightly above middle of the pack team. In terms of offensive DVOA, they're 12th, 19th in defensive DVOA. But I think that potentially doesn't tell the whole story in some regards. I think the offense, especially if Geno Smith isn't in particularly good shape, we don't really know exactly what's going to happen there. No Kenneth Walker. I don't necessarily think that's can be a huge loss. But I just don't think the Seahawks are quite as good as their record would suggest. And I think if there's a team in the NFL that the record doesn't really reflect how good they are, I'd say it's probably the 49ers. So I think taking the records aside, we're going to see a bit of an adjustment here. 49ers are allowing just 15.7 points per game. That's lower than anybody else in the entire league. The Seahawks are going to struggle to get it done, I think, ultimately. And we know the 49ers can put up points with the best of them as well. So, yeah, I look at this and I think this is going to be an easy win for the 49ers. So I'm taking the alternative line of 9.5, which I think is 2.5 points higher than the normal line. I just think that's where the value is. I could see a double-digit win very, very easily here.
Okay, there may be rare agreement on the Matchbook NFL podcast, i.e. a clean sweep here, because Judah does fancy a double-figure win. So, Judah, make the case for why I'm seeing a really big number in front of my screen here beside the SF.
Yeah, that's right. Going San Francisco minus 13.5 here. I think I'll just start with the Niners in general. We talked a lot, like, I don't remember exactly what weeks it was, like 7, 8, 9, that like we actually didn't have too much of a sample of the Niners without their healthy offense, and like kind of discounting them a little bit relative to market pricing. I'm gonna make the opposite argument now, which is like we have a pretty good idea of like just how good this Niners team is when everyone's healthy. They've been the best team in the league by a long, like by a wide margin. When everyone's healthy, they put up 30 points a game very, very, very consistently. And I don't see any reason why that wouldn't happen against the Seahawks team, which I think is like the exact definition of average right now. And that's not including any potential Geno Smith injury. I do think the Kenneth Walker injury actually matters. Yes, analytics guy, running backs. I do think the Kenneth Walker injury. The Niners are like one of the biggest run funnels in the league. And if you're going to have success against them, I think you either need to have like a Vikings Kirk Cousins throw for 370 yards. Good luck doing that again. Or you're going to need to like play some real effective ball control, leaning on the ground game, sustaining drives. And I also wish you luck with that strategy. But it does matter, I think, because you are going to need to have some run game against the Niners, because that's certainly where they're weakest, especially after they got some defensive reinforcements. But at the end of the day, like, there is some like stickiness, I think, to the fact that like Kyle Shanahan hasn't won a game trailing in the fourth quarter. His last, like, I don't know, some crazy number. Like, this team plays from ahead and they win by a lot. With the exception of the Rams games, they've won all of their games by 13 plus. I'm going to fade the market, building in some sample of the Niners pricing when they were not at full strength. I don't think that sample is at all relevant for how they're currently constructed. We know this Niners team front runs. The Seahawks are dealing with some major injuries. And when the Niners win, they win by 2 scores. I'm going to buy into that specific team tendency. I believe it's happened for years now. And I'm going to take the Niners at 13.5.
Okay, yeah, Drew, it seems like your -6.5 pales insignificant to both Judah and
what
Sam.
the heck, guys?
Yeah, they're kind of ruin your buzz
Sam
here.
like 9.5. Drew like 30. You know what? 20.5. 20.5, 40. No, I mean, I do think this is a lopsided matchup. I mean, the deja vu all over again. A lot of what these guys said, I completely agree with. Niners are getting healthy. I guess I'll just note the loss of Hufanga might ultimately put a lid on this defense in terms of their playoff capability. Like, it definitely levels the field, I think, with Philadelphia and their kind of dynamic 1-2 wide receiving core. It may level things with Dallas a little bit. Although I don't know if Dallas is ever going to match up with San Francisco. We'll see. But ultimately, the loss does not really change my opinion of this handicap. The Seahawks are a really, really weird team to try to break down, and they've made it tougher on us because there is a lot of opacity about who the quarterback is going to be. The market is moved from 6.5 to now a juiced 7 in the last 10 hours, which either means somebody has some inside information that it's going to be the Drew Lock experience, or they think like I think and think that, well, an injured Geno Smith or Drew Lock is probably not rated all that differently, and it shouldn't be within 7 points of the Niners, even at home. So I think the messaging you got from the Seahawks yesterday was concerning. They throw Geno Smith out there to do media, and his quote was literally no loss in translation here. How you feeling? I've had better days. That's not a good thing to be saying when you're, on the eve of, a Thursday night football game. When asked if he was going to start, so that's up to the coaches. I just do what I'm told. It's like, okay, well, that's strange. And then you go track down the Drew Lock quotes, and he's like, well, I'm just preparing like I would for every other week. I haven't been told that I'm going to start yet either. And if you kind of parse all this, it seems to me like the Seahawks coaches are not sure who they have a better chance to win with, an injured Geno Smith or Drew Lock. And that's probably actually correct. Like, it's, these guys are both, limited in the same capacity. And I would expect that kind of the key part of Geno's game, which is his ability to kind of feather in touch passes along the side, along the boundaries in like the 10 to 20 yard range. That's hugely in question if he's got an elbow injury. And I think the absence of DK Metcalf at practice yesterday is a problem. Like, if his toe injury is slowing him down and he's unable to create separation against the weakness of the Niners secondary, then, him being a non-factor is an issue, whether it's Locke or Geno Smith. And yes, the loss of Kenneth Walker matters, even though he's a very unusual running back and has lots of negative plays. We know that regardless of who's available, Pete Carroll and his offensive philosophy is going to make sure there's 20, 25 carries in this game. And if it's minus EV carries with Zach Charbonnet, then best of luck, kind of hanging with the Niners team. The Niners offense, on the other hand, this matches up like hot knife through butter. There's no kind of more obvious schematic advantage between kind of, what was talked about in the preseason, at least as divisional, possibilities. Seahawks, Niners, this could be a good divisional race in the NFC West. Well, the Seahawks have really no answer whatsoever for what the Niners do offensively. And you look at the Niners offensive line as potential weakness in the long run. Sure. Somehow, some way, Brock Purdy continues to be absolutely masterful under pressure. Like, he has had absolutely zero issues dealing with blitzing, dealing with, any type of breakdowns of the offensive line. And I think, with his weapons healthy against this Seahawks secondary, that is, again, everyone's hurt except for Witherspoon. Basically, everyone is limited or missing practice here. It's not going to be difficult for them, I think, to find their footing in this one to get some points. So, I laid it 6.5 with the Niners. I like that the market is in agreement with us. These guys going over the top on the alt lines, not going to stop anyone from getting frisky. And I think, we've got 3 pretty clear data points of these teams matching up last year, 2 of them with Brock Purdy under center. And, the final scores of those games didn't really even capture how big of a mismatch those 2 were in December and in the playoffs. So, big separation in class here. And Seahawks, I had kind of assumed we're still going to get the 6th seed in the NFC, but their schedule's starting to look pretty tough. And losing games like they lost last week to the Rams is going to ultimately probably come back and haunt them. So, they may elect to just kind of keep try to punt this game and get their squad healthy to try to make a stretch run here. And, I guess I'll obviously want our guys to win with Niners alts. And that's going to set up an interesting conversation in 2 weeks when these 2 teams play each other again in San Francisco, and the line is going to be like 13.5 or, or whatever. And, we'll have some soul searching to do if we're putting the Seahawks in the long shots conversation.
Yeah. I have Niners around minus 6.5 at 182, Niners minus 9.5, 2.3, minus 13.5, 3.0. And if you do want to do that minus 20.5 It's 5.9, around the same price as the Commanders money line. So give yourself a good think about what's more likely. Then possibly both pretty well priced, to be fair. But they're the three selections. And look, the three matches one-sided in general, but a decent amount of agreement with the guys. So maybe you can come up with a double or a treble for yourself.
I guess I got a fun question for Judah. Where are you on the Brock Purdy MVP case? And I guess, does this game matter? Is it high profile enough, or are all the voters going to be passed out from Thanksgiving turkey?
Yeah, or they're in Ireland and it's 1 a.m. I don't think it's like so dependent on like what the narrative is, which is like whatever Brock Purdy can do doesn't really matter because it's all Kyle Shanahan and his receivers, and like I don't like the production speaks for itself. If he's going to win on the merits of that, or just like being the last, like eliminate all other options because no one wants to win MVP this year, like fine. But I don't think this game in particular is going to like magnify it. There's nothing Brock Purdy can do that will just like at this point separate him from Kyle Shanahan, I think, in the kind of like media narrative. And like what narrative ends up winning, I have no idea. But I don't think his production is viewed in the same way as any other quarterbacks. And we like kind of have to view it through that lens.
Okay. Fascinating. Marcus Drew said nobody wants to win it at the moment. We will head to probably the game of the weekend, Bills at the Eagles. Very excited by this. Just have the thought of Cowboys Eagles a couple of weeks ago. If we get anything like that drama at the end, it'll be well worth watching this game. Bills 2.52 in Philadelphia, who are 1.6 favorites here on the money line. The point spread sees the Bills 3-point head start, but that is above even money at 2.04. And the total for this is 48. So yeah, Judah, set this game up for us. It's two really good football teams coming up against each other, and you're going to go for your alternative handicaps again that you like. If you're going to back a team on the money line, why not back them to win by 3 points or more?
Yeah, that I almost always agree with there. I think the case here is that I think the Bills and Eagles are effectively pretty much the same team at this point, like extremely overrated defenses. I think that the Bills secondary is a little bit better than the Eagles, and the Eagles pass rush is certainly a little better than the Bills. But ultimately, I think these are teams that are like powered by their offenses, and I think the Bills have a better offense at this point. I mean, if you just like look at any of the advanced numbers, they're going to come up in the top three. And in this particular matchup, I think where the Bills have struggled a lot is if Stephon Diggs is not having a crazy game, like they're really lacking in secondary options. But I think a couple of things have changed there. Number one, Khalil Shakir, who absolutely pops in my numbers, is getting a lot more run. We obviously saw last week him catch a long touchdown. I think that matters. Him getting more snaps and more targets is going to benefit this Bills offense in the long run. And in this particular matchup, I think the fact that the Eagles secondary has been dreadful. I mean, if you look at any of the Josh Jobe's been maybe the worst cornerback in football. James Bradbury, incredible player last year, probably should have been an All-Pro, is having a terrible season. Darius Slay too. It's not that crazy. These guys are not young, and like cornerback play is notoriously very volatile. I think that elevates the kind of weakness of the Bills in their lack of secondary options. Also, Dalton Kincaid getting way more involved. He's obviously been that kind of like second target, and I think Stephon Diggs is just going to have his way. And even the secondary options in that way matter less if Stephon Diggs is going to go for 100 yards or more. On the Eagles side, they're going to be an extremely consistent and good offense. I think the Dallas Goedert injury matters a lot, especially blocking in the run game. And like the Eagles offensive line got destroyed on Monday night against Kansas City. Hurts cannot run in the same way he's used to. He clearly doesn't want to do that. The offense, I think, is still designing some runs for him to try and keep the threat of the run, live for a defense to kind of account for. But he clearly can't run. He's obviously hurt. All of this is to say, like, given their current, teams, like I know the records are going to tell a totally different story. I think the Bills are flat out a better team. And yes, they're on the road, but I'm going to back them, especially given the prices we're going to get for a Bills minus 2.5.
Okay, yeah. Sam, what did you make of the Eagles Chiefs game last week? Because watching the game, I think everyone knows the Chiefs had enough to win that game. But is there maybe too much being made of that in the sense of the Eagles? Because you have to respect the record and the fact they keep digging out these victories.
You do have to respect the record, but I do think they're obviously best record in the league. They are the favourites now with Matchbook to win the Super Bowl. But and I can't help but think that they're not quite as good as the record. I wouldn't have them as my personal favourites to win either. So I think you kind of do need to be a little bit objective with it. And I think what Judah said is pretty much bang on the money. I don't think there is as big a difference between these two teams as the records would suggest. And I think we've seen some pretty poor play from Josh Allen at times, some stupid turnovers. If a couple of those hadn't have happened, we'd be looking at this game in a very, very different light. So for me, I'm going Bills plus 3.5. I can't believe we're actually all agreeing on stuff today, which is a little concerning, but I'm sure we'll disagree on some stuff in a minute. But yeah, the Bills are the top 3 on offense. Eagles are 6th on offensive DVOA. That is, sorry. Defensively, they're pretty much neck and neck. And I just don't believe in this Eagles team ultimately when it comes down to it. And I think kind of we talked about, or Judah talked about, who's going to help out if Stephon Diggs doesn't have a big day. And I think this could be a real big day for Dalton Kincaid. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably see that nearly every Sunday. But I've got to say, I think this is going to be a good one for him. The Eagles have given up 6 touchdowns to tight ends so far this season. So I think this could be a real opportunity for him to have a big day. And yeah, I think just take Bills in the points, because if they win, I really wouldn't be shocked. And I think there's an argument for taking the handicaps as Judah and Drew have done as well.
Yeah, and completely agreement for us here, Drew, with more agreement. I guess throughout the season we haven't always agreed. So in these 4 main games at least. So it's going to be really promising, or we're going to have to pick up the pieces big time next Wednesday, Drew. So.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, and
is it great mind, Drew, or is it group thinking? You tell me.
I don't know. It's tough to say. Because I've lost money now a couple weeks in a row trying to sell the top on the Eagles, and a ton of it is because Jalen Hurts is injured. Like it's as Judah said, like it's as obvious as plain as day. Like you've taken an entire element out of that offense. Like how are they getting away with this, right? And I could be screaming, take the money line against the Eagles every week between now and the Super Bowl, and it's going to ultimately drain my entire positive performance to this point in the season, because that they are playing a different game in a lot of ways. They're playing 4-down football. That definitely, there's a coaching advantage here in terms of in-game decision making. It's clearly Philly. If there's an advantage here in terms of health, it's clearly Philly. The Bills' defense is in absolute shambles. I haven't heard a ton of news on the health or availability of Dane Jackson, Teron Johnson, and Taylor Rapp, who are all came out of that game against the Jets and are all probably questionable, if at best, for this one, which means that you're going to have, a very, very sticks and twine type of secondary here, which means winning, the only strength that the Bills have left in their defense, which is their D line. They need to win, and they need to win quickly, and they need to take advantage of the fact that Jalen Hurts is a sitting duck. The other side of the coin, I think, is a lot more straightforward. Bills' phenomenal offensive line. Josh Allen is getting healthier and looking incredibly fine to me. Mechanics look better. They've gotten better every week for the last 3 weeks. And yeah, the Stephon Diggs matchup is tasty. The secondary options all have, juice in this one. I think the Bills pretty comfortably get 230. That said, you just need a couple turnovers, a couple stops, and I think you get a win. And I think that makes a case to play both the Bills and the over here. We were joking last week about the look ahead being 47. It opened 47 and it got bet. And then we saw widely available open 48. It got bet. It's 48.5 right now. I still think that's too low. I think this should be 51. And I'm expecting, a pretty convincing performance by the Bills offense, and hopeful that they can find some magic on defense with a couple key stops at the end of this one, some sacks, some fumbles, maybe a pick, if anyone is healthy in the secondary, and we can get a Bills win home. Not giving up on the Bills. I think they can. I hope they get into the playoffs, because right now the AFC playoff picture is looking pretty suspect, and I would really like to see Josh Allen in the mix, even if he's on the road. It would be a fun, we were kind of expecting that there was going to be some chaos with maybe Joe Burrow being on the road in the playoffs and ruin a couple teams' chance, hopes of the Super Bowl. Well, that's not happening now. Now it's got to be Josh Allen. So let's get him in the wild card spot. This is a pretty important win. The Bills' backs are against the wall in every way I could possibly draw it up, and the Eagles have a couple, games on deck the next 2 weeks that are more important than this game. So if there's any schematic wrinkles that they want to integrate into their game plan, any new looks, any tendency breakers, I would expect that they keep them in their pocket for games against the Niners and the Cowboys in the following couple weeks, which could be, again, enough to keep this Bills defense head above water. So Bills money line over, I think, are both fun plays. Both are starting to get some of the value sucked out of them with the betting market kind of being in that direction for both of those this week. But I think directionally correct with the movement we've seen.
Okay, yeah, you've got me excited for a wild card weekend already, Drew. So this is what this podcast is all about, not just this weekend's football, but leading into what will be a great few weeks post Christmas. Bills money line, Bills plus 3.5, Bills minus 2.5. A lot of agreement on this show. There is a bit of disagreement with any other bets and Judah's best bets, naturally, obviously. So the guys are always ganging up against poor Judah. So we will lock in, we'll go to best week 12 long shots. And look, Drew, you're our guy, 7-2. You're still got the winning record. Are you like the Eagles now, though, in the sense that you're hanging on to that record a little bit, or what are you cooking up for us this week?
Gosh, I don't know. I feel more like the Chiefs hanging on. I think best long shot is tough. I didn't really know what to put. Not seeing a long shot that really has a chance this week, and kind of regretting I didn't put the commies in, for being honest, because that's
never too late. Never too late, Drew.
You want to do commies? I think it's a more compelling case than the one I wrote down.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right, let's go commies. Yeah, let's not just take the commies. Let's parlay that with the over. I can get 10-1 on that. I think that's how this goes, because the commies aren't winning with defense on Thanksgiving. It's going to have to be offense. It's going to have to go into the game's going to have to go into the 50s for them to have a chance. But Sam Howell can sling it. I like the cut of his jib, and I think the Cowboys defense is havable in the middle part of the field, especially, and not a lot being talked about at some of the secondary injuries the Cowboys are dealing with on a short week. I think the commies are alive, so let's get weird.
Yeah, so I'll just steal Drew's Chargers money line. We're losing games by one score all the time. Just give us a chance. Money line, underdogs. Sunday night football, isn't it? Or Monday? I think it's Sunday night. 252. That's Dan's first bet of the season. Chargers money line against.
Yeah, just for fun. I played plus 3.5 I played plus 4.5. Excuse me. It's down to 3.5. I simulated all the games just to get a sense of what the distribution looks like. This is one of the highest Ravens win by 3. This is one of the highest modal outcomes I've seen all season. This is a pretty narrow distribution Ravens by 3. And it just kind of feels like that's how this goes, right? Either the Ravens drive and kick the game winner, or Justin Herbert's got the ball in his hands with a minute to play, down 3 to tie it and doesn't get it done. That's kind of the way that goes. So I'm glad we pivoted from Chargers money line to commies. I think that's more fun.
I'll be adding it to the Insights article. Dan, Chargers money line. Sam, take it away with your long shots. You're going against Drew completely, so there's more disagreement.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Dan. Bringing Drew into this. Whenever Drew goes for a long shot, it's always against me, and it always I was about to say that. Always messes me up. So look, I'm going back to the well on the Cowboys. 19.5 points is the spread I'll be taking. I kind of talked about it in detail earlier, but the Cowboys are front runners, as we've spoken about. And of their 7 wins, we've had 6 with 20 or more points. And I don't know if it was Judah or Drew, somebody mentioned about the caliber of those teams. I think there is an element of that. Panthers once, Giants twice, Rams, and Stafford got injured in that game, I think, Pats and Jets. So, yeah, I think there's an element of that, but I just think Howell is what he is. They could have a lights out performance from him, or they could have one that sees him turn over the ball a number of times against what is a very good defense. So, yeah, 19.5 point handicap here. I feel a bit dirty taking it. I feel even dirtier taking it now that I know Drew's gone for the commies money line. But yeah, look, I'm going to stick with my guns. Cowboys minus 19.5.
I'm laughing at the middle here, which is 19.
It's a big one. It's a big one.
It's a massive one, yeah. Late Commander's touchdown makes it a 19-point win for the Cowboys. Everybody loses. The more I think about it, Judah, I think a live playing that game is the way to go, to see how the game play out, and then just go one way or the other.
Yeah, real quick. The usually the term for a middle like that is a Polish middle, but in honor of Sam being in Serbia, we'll call it the Serbian middle today. Because it's that big. It's massive. We're talking about a big old middle there.
Yeah, 19-point Serbian middle on Thanksgiving Thursday. Judah, it seems every week there's any other bet or best long shot from you involving Josh Dobbs and the Vikings since he's been there. So what's your thinking here going against this?
I guess so. I didn't think that way. I feel like I flip-flopped on sides here depending on pricing. And I have to say, I was definitely tempted by the commie money line long shot as well. But I figured I'd give that case, in talking about the game. But I like the Bears here. The defense right now is being power ranked at like the 31st best unit. But if you take a look at what they've done the past month, since a little more than that, like past 6 weeks, since this team got a lot healthier, and like that's not just like picking any randoms like sample of 6 weeks and being like, oh, here's a small sample and they're good, it's proving my point, but like no, something effectively changed, which is like their roster got healthy. That matters. Since then, they've been an awesome defense. I'm willing to say that the game against Detroit last week, where they struggled against the run, was a function of Detroit being really good at running the football and not the Bears run defense isn't as good as we thought. I think this is an incredible run unit, and the pass defense has also been really good. And it's not just a function of like playing a bunch of, easy quarterbacks. Not that Josh Dobbs would be the type of guy who can, mitigate any matchup. That's not his style of play. Ultimately, what this comes down to, I think, is just like the Bears match up really well with the Vikings if they can stop the run. Like if you're going to get Josh Dobbs in like obvious passing situations, like maybe he can continue the like scramble magic, and he's probably an effective scrambler, but he's not going to play as well under pressure as he did against the Broncos, throwing for like 8 yards per attempt under pressure. That stuff doesn't happen. He's going to take sacks eventually. And I think the Bears offense has materially changed going back to that Washington game, or even a little bit before that, where they started letting Justin Fields throw the ball deep and hasn't had this kind of shallow EDOT. And I don't think markets have quite adapted to the fact that like this Bears offense is going to look very different. They can run the ball effectively, and they're going to get their deep shots in. And that's the strength of Justin Fields. And certainly against a kind of blitz heavy team where Fields will be looking to throw deep, getting single coverage as he responds to the blitz. And I expect him to connect on a couple of these with DJ Moore or Darnell Mooney. But at the end of the day, I just think this comes down to markets I don't think have adjusted enough to the fact that this Bears team, if you look at the average, like the team as a whole are playing fundamentally like an average team. And certainly in recent weeks, this defense is way mispriced relative to the market.
Okay, yeah, we will. I know Drew agrees with +3.5. I'll bring you in a sec on the Bears. That is, Drew. Just go to you, Judah, for any other bets. It's Panthers +3.5 at the Titans.
Yeah, this one's a real ugly one, I think, but I effectively see these teams as very similar. I think Will Levis can be like fine in the right matchup and with the right circumstances, but like we shouldn't overlook that this is a Titans team that's generating the least separation of any wide receiving unit. The offensive line's a disaster. Like it's not a coincidence that this team has put up a pathetic number of yards in the past couple of weeks, and Howell's taking a ton of sacks. This is not a good offense, and 3.5 is just too much. I don't care who the opponent is. This offense can't score.
It's done. Simple cases, Judah. That's what we like to hear. We will go to you, Drew, a little bit on the Bears, and then you can start this Broncos game. The Browns of the Broncos. So take it away with your any other bets.
Yeah, Judah makes a good point. In order to cover 3.5, you have to score, and the Titans can't score, so that's a fair one. I'm going to go with my look on the Bears wasn't as aggressive. I'm just taking 3.5 here, but I don't dispute anything that Judah laid out there. I think the Bears offense is starting to perform a lot more like they were, closer to the ceiling of expectation coming into this season. I thought they were perfectly. I liked some of the design runs in particular. Some of the conceptual stuff that they were doing against the Lions, I thought was really smart. And I think that can work against this Vikings team. And I think the Bears defense is for real, even though they ran out of gas at the tail end of that Lions game. One kind of final note, it's worth pointing out the the bill is coming due on Josh Dobbs to a degree. I don't think he's an especially good quarterback. And I think in general, in looking at some of the statistical breakdown, it was also kind of surprising and shocking and a little disappointing. The second half, Josh Dobbs is his splits first half, second half are like the opposite of Jordan Love, where he is in the basement with the Zach Wilsons of the world in the second half in terms of EPA per drop back. And I think the fact that the Vikings aren't going to be fully healthy here matters. If the Vikings, they're doing a really nice job of pass protection, and congratulations to them for finding a bunch of hits on that offensive line. But I still think this is not a great matchup for them against the Bears. And Monday Night Football should be a fun competitive game. So I took the 3.5.
Okay, yeah, and it's Broncos -2.5 for
yeah.
you against the Browns. That this is going to be a bit of disagreement. I know Sam's playing the total, but you and Judah are going out here.
Counting on the home road splits for the Browns defense to be somewhat signal and less noise. I think the Broncos being relatively healthy defensively, this is probably the last bite at the apple you get because they're up against DTR, who I was wildly underwhelmed with against the Steelers. He had one solid drive in that game, and it was the game-winning field goal drive, and that was against the Steelers team that had been on the field for 35 minutes. So it's tough for me to really say that he is the answer for this offense. And now you're going on the road in a hostile environment at altitude. All of this spells trouble for me for the Browns staying competitive in this game. And I think last week the Broncos get an ugly win against the Vikings in Sunday Night Football, and like I would grade that as about a 33rd percentile-ish performance from the Broncos. And if they're getting hard-fought wins that way and they're playing an average to above average game here against the Browns at home, then that I think sets up pretty well for them to finally pop a bit. So expecting basically a little bit cleaner performance from the Broncos in this game. And I like just in general the chemistry that's starting to build between Russell Wilson and Courtland Sutton. So I laid it 2.5 with the Broncos.
Yeah, makes a compelling case. Sam, you don't like either team here, hence the underplay.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that. I think if I was to lean to either team, I would lean to the Broncos. But for me, I think the bet in this game to take is the under. We know that the Browns D is superb, ranked number 1 in defensive DVO, and we've seen all season that they've been very good. And I think whilst Russell Wilson and his Broncos team are looking better and better, he's obviously scored more touchdowns already this season than he did all of last year combined. I think he's going to find it very hard against that defense. So that's kind of one thing on that side. I think they will be able to limit him and stop Russ from cooking. And whilst on the other side of that, you have the big problem for the Browns. They've not been great on offense anyway, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson hasn't really changed that either. So it was 13-10 they won last week, bit of a stinker against the Steelers. And I could honestly see a game that's kind of not particularly much higher than this time around. I don't think we're going to see 30 points broken. So yeah, taking the under.
Under 34.5, 197. Judah, let Russell cook in your best bet, but you're going completely against.
Yeah, should I just keep it simple and say I think the Broncos are poor man's Browns? No, I'm just kidding.
It's a good line, though. It's a good one-liner.
Yeah, it is a good one-liner. I think the market's rating this Broncos offense 16th best. Their EPA per play is 17th best. But ultimately, for me, I don't think this builds in a relevant sample at all, which is like it's taking the Broncos offense kind of from like the first 4 to 5 weeks where they performed at a top 10 clip. And they made a like clear change around week 5, week 6, where they were going from like a neutral pass team to one that's like running the ball over expected like 70% of the time, just completely hiding Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson checked the ball down 25% of the time last week. His offense is dreadful. Since they made that change, this is like the 25th best offense by literally any metric you want to look at. I don't think they're going to have any semblance of success against the Browns. I think this game would be flipped if the Broncos didn't happen to win the last 2, and I think they kind of lucked into that, like complete coin flips. Whether or not they actually come up with the results, wins the last 2 weeks. This is just not a good team. The Browns, I'm not going to say their offense is particularly good, but I think the defense matters way more against a Broncos team that's being priced for a unit that they're just not.
Okay, Sam, come in then. A little question to Judah, and then get on to your best bet as well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a quick question, Judah. Do you think that is the move from a kind of pass to run with the Broncos is down to a view around Russ, or do you think it's down to Javonte Williams kind of proving that he's kind of a bit healthier anyway after that injury last season?
Yeah, I think the strategy is kind of like exactly how they've won the past bunch of weeks, which is just like try and force turnovers, win the turnover battle, and like try and grind out these simple games. They're not like giving Javonte Williams a ton of carries. They're actually like mixing it up a lot. So I don't think it's a Javonte Williams thing. I think they just like changed how they thought they were going to play offense and win games, and that's worked for them in terms of like actual wins and losses. But I don't think that's a sticky way of doing it.
I just like being against DTR on this first road start. That's kind of all there's for me. So, yeah.
Another fascinating game, essentially another marquee game for us on the Match Week NFL podcast. Sam, you don't really like Patriots or Giants, I sense, and it might be impacting your thinking here. You're going under 34.5. So you used to like these low totals to go over, but you're the season's hard. You're going for it to be rootless here if you have to.
I do. I really like the low totals in the NFL because I think you can quite often get a handle on just how bad these teams are, whether they've been potentially the faults have been over exaggerated. And I think here the faults have not been exaggerated. These are two terrible teams. So I don't really know where to start here. DeVito, let's be honest, he's never going to have a game like that again. That was the best game of his career. And when he's kind of working in a shop in a couple of years' time, he's going to really tell a lot of great stories about that. So really pleased for him, but he's just frankly not going to have as good a game again. I don't see any evidence to believe that he would. And on the flip side of that, the Patriots, we've seen Bill Belichick this week be kind of really uncommittal about who's going to start at quarterback, which I think is probably telling us that he's likely to lean towards either the current second or third stringers, which means either Bailey Zappi or Will Grier to start over Mac Jones. I'm not convinced either of those guys are going to be particularly better than Mac Jones, as bad as he is. So ultimately, I don't think either of these teams is going to get near. I don't know. I don't think we're going to get either of them hitting 20. I think it's going to be an absolute horror show of a game. And I think DeVito and Zappi just sounds like just the worst cancelled sitcom of all time. And I don't want any part of this. So I'm taking the under here.
Oh yeah, like the old days, maybe under 6.5 could come into play here on the alternative totals. Drew, Bills money line at Eagles 2.52. You've made your case here, so I would say the best part of the case that you said I think was given the Eagles have a couple of tough NFC matchups coming up in the next couple of weeks, that you might get them just in a little bit of a reserve state, even consciously or subconsciously with some of their plays.
I'll admit I'm 100% holding my breath to see what the injury report looks like for the Bills defense today, because it's clear that the Eagles have the opportunity to go score for score with these guys if the Bills secondary is as weak as we think as it could be to the bad. That said, I think high confidence here that the Bills are going to score on this Eagles defense, and I think that sets up an opportunity for a plus a 2.52 is I just think a very fair price to get involved with the team that has the better quarterback and the better offense in terms of ceiling of expected points here. So one of these days the Eagles and their injury to Jalen Hurts is going to matter. And when it does, I'm going to be there with the winning money line ticket. And I hope it's not in the year 2024.
Against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, my man.
Yes.
Lock it in.
The rumors that I'm just martingaling against the Eagles every week are not true.
There's more to it than that, Drew, as we know. But happy Thanksgiving to all the guys in the comments. Really fun one this week. Bills money line under 34.5, Patriots, Giants, and Browns money line 2.28 are the best bets. Do check out the Matchup Betting Exchange where you can multiply them into a multiple of your choice. But we'll be back same time, same place next week. Enjoy the Thursday night football, enjoy Friday's football, which we didn't get to, and then enjoy Sunday's football, and we will chat to you next Wednesday. Bye bye.